Hi everyone, just a quick intro before we jump into the Shortcrust pastry video. I'm going to show you an easy way to make it, along with some professional techniques I use every day. The video is a bit longer, but I wanted to include all of the little details so you can really master it whether you're baking at home or in a professional kitchen. Hi everyone, today we are going to make a shortcrust pastry. This is the basic recipe. You can find it probably everywhere, but in a professional kitchen, or if you're doing the pastry as a professional, it's not about recipe, it's more about how you make. You will find the recipe down below or probably on a side. What you need: a food processor. I have a standard food processor, nothing fancy. All of my dry ingredients here. I also added some orange zest because I'm going to use this shortcrust pastry with a orange flavored cake. It also adds some freshness. So if you're making, for example, key lime pie, it's perfect to add the lime zest. I am making the orange cake, so freshness from the orange zest would be perfect. You will need a cold butter. This butter is just from the fridge, and you will need egg. So the recipe is indicating other weight of egg. Me personally, I just don't like when I'm seeing recipe and I'm seeing 35 grams. I don't like dividing eggs and blitz them and weigh the 35 gram. I would prefer to use the whole egg. That's why in the recipe I've put 40 grams is for the medium egg, 50 for the larger one, and 60 for the large egg. So you can use one egg per recipe. You don't need to divide it. You don't need to measure that. If you don't know the weight of your egg or you are in doubt, just use a scale. And simple mathematics is 11% of the weight of the whole egg is the shell. So if your eggs, let's say 67 grams, the total egg weight would be around 60. So let's just start it. Very simple recipe. I use almond meal. I found with the almond meal the shortcrust base texture is better. It's more pliable when you're trying to land the tart, for example. It also crumbly and more delicate when you bite into that. You don't need to sift any of these ingredients because the food processor will blitz it quite nicely. Again, that's flour, it's icing sugar, then it's almond meal, it's orange zest only because I want to that flavor. I skip the salt in this recipe because I'm using salted butter. If you use unsalted butter, you can add salt now. We're going just to blitz it so everything is mixed. Basically, that's it. It's nothing else to do. That's why sifting is make no difference unless you are not sure about your flour. So it may be some inclusion that you would like to avoid. All butter. And we blitz this until we see no butter lumps and the texture of the dough would be like a wet sand. Probably depending on your food process, it might take longer or less time. Just make sure that butter is fully incorporated. So if you see texture like this, you can see the lumps of butter, so it's not ready. You need to blitz it until it's fully incorporated. So now it's perfect. You can see that there is no lumps of butter and the texture is resembling like a wet sand. The large recipe that you can find perfectly fits into 2-liter bowl. So if you have a food processor and you are not sure if it fits your food processor, 2 liters is enough to make a large portion of the dough with the egg 60 gram. When we blitz it with the butter, we're going to add 1 egg. The egg should be room temperature. Butter is cold. And then blitz again. Very easy to say when the dough is ready. It just when it's from 1 lump. So basically that's it, your dough is ready. And what is the beautiful part of making recipe this way instead of using your stand mixer is you don't need to wait until the dough is relaxed, because if you're mixing with a pedal, it will develop the gluten. You will be struggling to roll it out. You will need a parchment paper. I've seen, not sure why, but many chefs that like professional chefs, they are using the plastic sheets. I think it's not nice for the environment. Use lots of plastic. You will get the same result using just a baking paper. If you have a large one, you will need probably divide it, but if you have a roll, just make a, depending on what you're going to make, but maybe 40 centimeters. Obviously, you will need 2 pieces of paper. The texture that you are looking for. So you can easily form it. It's still a little bit cold because butter was in the fridge. Beauty of this recipe that, again, you don't need to wait. You can roll it straight away. Before I'm rolling, I prefer to press it, so I'll spend just less time on the rolling. This probably would be a bit too large for this piece of paper, but we can cut the sides later and we will roll it as thin as we would like to. So I would go 2 or 3 millimeters, as it's considered as a perfect thickness for the short crust pastry. If you're making a tart shell, I would say if you make them this first time, make it thicker, because it would be easier to line the tart. The thinner short crust, it's more trickier, or you need to be more confident or quick lining the tart. I'm going to use the simple ring. Multiple rings you can find. I found the perforated one works probably the best. There are metal one. I also have some plastic, but today I'm going to line this shape of the tart. What you need to do is just basically spread the dough between papers. Ideally to fill all of the gaps. Sometimes you can have a bubbles or crescent on the other side. You just need to fill it put it back, make it flat, and do it again. I basically check like this and I can see the thickness. So that's approximately 3 millimeters now. And I can check what the base I need. Then I will roll out the rest of the dough to make a sides. We are going to do straight away is just the cut, the base that we understand that we're going to use. It's a tricky with this shape. If you're using the plane, that would be just easier. As soon as you press and you got your shape, you need to remove rest of the dough. So this can go now into the fridge. What I can see, it's still not a thickness that I would like to. So I'll just make a little bit thinner. See if it's visible on the camera, but that's approximately now 3 millimeters thickness. And that is fine when you're making, I would say, 18 centimeters tart. I would probably go even thicker if it's a large one, so you need that stability in the base. But that is now perfectly fine, and as it is, you can just put the paper so it's adhere to the surface and put this in the fridge just to cool down. And while this goes in the fridge, we're going to roll out the rest of the dough. Because I'm going to make strips, in this case I would like the dough be as long as possible. That's why I'm trying to pre-shape it into the longer piece. When it's uneven shape and you would like have it not a Africa shape but something more rectangular, you just need to cut the, let's say, outburst of the dough. And just stick into the area where it's missing. You can also use a silicone mat. I found that sometimes silicone mat is more stickier than the baking paper. This paper is good enough to reuse it multiple times for the short crust base. Or sometimes I can just use it and keep it for my next baking. There are many ways how you can use the short crust base. You can obviously line the tart, but you can also use it as a base for your cake. It's nice to have that stability and the shape, and it looks just nicer. You can also cut small shapes and fill it with a ganache, make it like a macaroons. So after the dough was in the fridge, we are ready to assemble the tart. So how to know that the dough is ready? Basically, if you can hold it like this and it's not falling, and it's ready. We don't need the bottom part to be very firm, so we can just put it aside while we are making the sides. This one would be a bit too hard to put in the tart straight away, so it's a firmer that we need, but it's easier now to cut it, and meanwhile of the process of cutting and measuring, it will become softer and we would be able to put it in a tart. So we need to peel off two sides. We just start with a corner and just peel to another corner. You can measure your ring in case you're making a tart. So mine is 3. What you need to do is basically just cut the strips. I can do that with a ruler because I can use this thickness of the ruler as measurements. That would be we will need 2 or maybe 2.5. We don't need this to be very precise because we are going to trim it anyway. We're going to start with the sides first. So this consistency that you are looking for, you would be able to put this in a tart. You also need to press it quite firmly to the base so it's stay in the tart. I know that would be enough. You need to overlap a little bit with the previous part. You can always remove excess amount of the dough. With this shape, you need to press into each indent to get the shape. That's what we're looking for. We need to have a bit overlap on the top. We are not going to trim it now. We are going to do that a bit later when we press the dough. Making the same with the base. Still on one side. Flip on the other side. The easiest way and the perfect way to make it is to using the perforated silicone mat. In this case, you don't need to use a fork to make holes, so your tart shell would be perfectly flat. You can put it straight away onto the silicone mat and just flip it. You can just put it on top. There's some leftovers. And you just press it evenly on each side, just using the ring itself. Don't press the dough. You can trim it now so it looks nice, but just keep in mind that if you trim it now, the dough, especially sides, that will sunk a little bit, so it would be not, in my case, 3 centimeters, it would be probably 2.7, 2.6, so a bit less. Or you can bake it as it is, and then you can trim it after baking. You just need to remove the dough outside, and you just roll it out as we did it previously. I prefer to put it in a fridge for another 15 minutes or even in a freezer. So when we put this in the oven, it holds its shape. Otherwise, it can melt more if it's room temperature. Our tart shell is ready. It was in the fridge for another 15 minutes. Always check the consistency than just the time, because your fridge might be stronger or not as strong as it's supposed to be. So I'm happy with this consistency of the dough, so it's not falling, it's quite firm. My oven is fan forced 165. If you don't have a fan forced, use a top and bottom 170, 75 degrees and bake until it's golden brown. So the shell was in the oven for 15 minutes, and I can see that it's a still pale color. I would like it more golden, more brown color, like one on the top. And even now you can see how it's sunk to the height of the shell. So that's a good thing that we didn't trim it before. I'm going to put for another maybe 7 minutes. So that's what I consider as a fully baked tart shell. So we can see that the dough contracted. We have a gap between. So we just need to leave it to fully cool down. And by cool it down, it's even shrink more, so it would be easy to remove from the shell. So we just need to push it through, and because we have some of the dough overlapping on the top of this side, we need to push it from the other side. We don't grease the shell because we have enough butter basically in the dough, so we don't need to grease anything. So that's our shell, and it looks fine from the outside. We can see that because we had a perforated silicone mat without any fork, we had a perfect thickness, no bubbles raised while baking. We have a not perfect brims, but we are going to make it looks better. Just these simple movements to remove the upper parts. Depending what you're going to put inside, I would consider this as a good example of the tart that you can fill it with a filling, and depending on your decoration on top, you can even hide any imperfection of your tart shell if it's going to be visible. So, for example, in this one, let's say I would like to hide this part because it's a little bit thinner than the other part. So when I'm going to finish with the piping, for example, cream or meringue on top, I will just put more, so that all would be covered, and from the outside you will see the perfect shell. But basically that's it. That's our tart shell is ready, and you can always utilize this kind of powder. Basically this, if you have a unsuccessful, for example, baking and it's collapsed and you are not satisfied, you can always turn this into the cheesecake base. So that's the same short crust that you will use for the cheesecake. So don't throw it away, just blitz it, make a powder, add some butter and make a base for the cheesecake.